Well, hello there, and thank you for joining me for this week's edition of Telile 24/7. I'm your host, Adam Cook. This week, we'll stop by Port Hawkesbury Town Council's latest regular meeting and hear what town officials have to say about the cleanup that followed the two big snowstorms that hit the Strait Area earlier this month. We're also going to have some highlights from Richmond Municipal Council's latest Committee of the Whole meeting for you, including a segment that you might find interesting if you're concerned about rising property assessments. And we'll take a trip to Point Tupper, where Port Hawkesbury Paper was the host site for a provincial government announcement about assistance being provided to apprentices across Nova Scotia. But we begin with a story that broke just as we were heading into the final hours of production for this episode of Telile 24/7. Richmond MLA Trevor Boudreau has announced he is stepping down from Premier Tim Houston's provincial cabinet, citing personal and health reasons. Boudreau relinquishes the portfolios of Community Services and Illinois Affairs. That last ministry is being taken over by the Minister of Education, Brian Wong, and the new Community Services Minister is a former Liberal MLA from Halifax that crossed the floor to join the PC caucus earlier this week, Brendan Maguire. We're hoping to hear from Trevor Boudreau himself in a future edition of Telile 24/7 or Roundtable. But for the time being, here is the official statement that the Richmond MLA released on the morning of Thursday, February the 22nd, announcing his departure from the Houston cabinet. The following statement was released by Richmond MLA Trevor Boudreau on Thursday morning, February 22nd. It is with disappointment that I am immediately stepping down from my role as Minister of Community Services and Illinois Affairs for personal and health reasons. I have always sought to undertake my role in the government, led by Premier Tim Houston, with compassion and the focus that it requires. Sadly, it is apparent to me that I must regretfully resign from my ministerial duties so that I am able to look after my well-being and to ensure that my constituents in Richmond continue to be represented diligently. I value my role and remain committed to the constituents of Richmond and will continue to serve as their MLA. I will support the government as a caucus member and through my constituency work. It has been the greatest honor to have been a minister under Premier Houston's leadership. I thank my family and colleagues for their support at this time. The preceding statement was released by Richmond MLA Trevor Boudreau on the morning of Thursday, February 22nd. One of Trevor Boudreau's last appearances as a minister in the Tim Houston cabinet came just last Friday at Port Hawkesbury Paper in Point Tupper. Boudreau was one of three cabinet ministers who were joining forces to make an announcement about provincial assistance for apprentices across the province. It will involve defraying the cost of getting equipment or clothing that apprentices need to be able to carry out their jobs. Let's go to Point Tupper right now and visit the longtime paper-making facility, Port Hawkesbury Paper, and hear about this provincial announcement right now. It isn't every day that three Nova Scotia cabinet ministers show up in the Strait Area at the same time, but that's exactly what happened on a cold mid-February Friday morning at Port Hawkesbury Paper when three members of the PC provincial cabinet arrived to confirm a $100 million investment in the Nova Scotia apprenticeship program. These included the Minister of Labour, Skills and Immigration for Nova Scotia, Digby-Annapolis MLA Jill Balzer, as well as the MLA for Guysborough Eastern Shore Tracadie and Nova Scotia's Agriculture Minister Greg Morrow. Kicking things off, however, was the hometown MLA for Port Hawkesbury Paper, the Minister of Community Services and Richmond Representative Trevor Boudreau.
In Richmond County, we are proud of Port Hawkesbury Paper. It has been a staple in our community for more than 60 years. Over that time, Port Hawkesbury Paper has helped many Nova Scotians launch a career in the skilled trades. Many of our friends, families, and neighbors are proud to have had a good-paying job here at home. And today, Port Hawkesbury Paper continues to help the next generation of apprentices start a career in skilled trades here in Cape Breton. So this is a fitting location for today's announcement, and I'm proud to be here.
I just want to thank everyone for being here and joining all of us for today's special announcement. I just really appreciate you all taking time out of your very busy days. I also just want to acknowledge my Deputy Minister who's here from Labour, Skills and Immigration, who were just ecstatic about this announcement today, and my team for all their support, so thank you. So I'm grateful to be surrounded by so many hard-working Cape Bretoners and Nova Scotians. And I'm especially pleased to be here at Port Hawkesbury Paper today, and thank you for the tour. It was incredible to learn more about this amazing facility. This company has a strong track record at hiring and supporting apprentices, and we are grateful for what you're doing to attract, mentor, and support skilled trades professionals and their pathway to certification. All of you here today already understand the value of a career in the skilled trades, the value of a career you can do right here at home. We need more people to enter the skilled trades to keep pace with our growing province. We need more manufacturing, more hospitals, more schools, and more homes. And we can't do this without bringing more apprentices into the pipeline. And that is why we are removing barriers and setting apprentices up for successful careers in the skilled trades. And you may recall, in October, we announced a $100 million investment to recruit, train, and retain more people in the skilled trades. The investment is funding actions that will add up to 5,000 more apprentices into the system in the next 3 years, increase the number of journey persons and trade qualifiers taking on apprentices by 1,000 a year, and increase the retention rate to certification of apprentices from 43% to 60%. And that's going to be one of the highest in the country within 5 years. So today, we are announcing 2 new funding programs that have been made possible by this investment, and we're putting more money into the pockets of apprentices. Individuals who have registered as new apprentices in the skilled trades are now eligible for up to $1,900 in financial assistance for purchasing new tools and technology to support their training and beginning their careers. There are many costs when an apprentice is taking on their technical training or starting a new job: clothing, equipment, tools, technology, and these grants will help alleviate some of the burden that apprentices may be feeling across the province. The tools grant will provide up to $1,000 for the purchase of new tools, equipment, and clothing that's required for their trade. Eligible items are those that are essential for the apprentice to carry out their work safely and effectively in their respective trades. The technology support grant provides up to $900 for a computer and accessories. This support will assist apprentices in completing their technical training. And earlier this week, we also announced 2 new incentives for people on their path to certification in the skilled trades. First, we provided funding to create more seats in technical training for apprentices. This means almost 200 apprentices have been moved off the wait list and into technical training to continue progressing towards certification. In addition, experienced trades professionals can now challenge their certification exams in construction trades at no cost until 2026. This puts about $740 back into the pockets of those looking to become a certified trades professional through the trade qualifier route. In addition, we recently launched the MyCred digital wallet, which allows skilled tradespeople to access their credentials faster through a self-serve digital app. MyCred also allows Nova Scotia Apprenticeship Agency to certify, issue, accept, and verify credentials for apprentices and certified tradespeople, providing seamless access for them to pursue opportunities in the labor market. Our government is laser focused on accelerating growth in the skilled trades, and these actions are just the beginning of steps we are taking to modernize the apprenticeship system. So thank you, Port Hawkesbury Paper, for having us here today, and thank you for the great work that you are doing every day to support apprentices. And now I would like to hand the mic over to our CEO of the Nova Scotia Apprenticeship Agency, Michelle Bussey.
Nova Scotia is growing, and the skilled trades is at the forefront of this growth. Last year, we registered over 2,500 new apprentices into the skilled trades, an increase of over 1,000 from the previous year. There are now over 8,900 apprentices registered across the province. This is an incredible number, but we need to support those apprentices to progress through the system faster. We are also seeing a growing number of apprentices from equity-deserving groups, who now account for 20% of all apprentices. These figures are encouraging, but we recognize there is more that needs to be done. We are committed to attracting, training, and retaining even more apprentices to address our labor market needs. Our actions today underscore our commitment to modernize the apprenticeship and trades certification system and to accelerate the growth of skilled trades. The skilled trades are becoming increasingly more technical, and more resources are now available online. However, not all apprentices have access to the necessary technology to support this funding. No one should be held back from progressing in the technical training due to lack of resources. The technology support announced today empowers apprentices to access training materials and succeed in their technical training on their journey through certification. These supports are available now, and all apprentices who have enrolled in a technical training as of the beginning of this year can apply. We also recognize that new apprentices face significant upfront costs for tools and equipment that may be essential for education, technical, and workplace training. The new tools grant program announced today will significantly reduce the financial burden on those who may not be able to afford these resources. This program complements the financial assistance for books, travel, accommodation, and childcare already in place for apprentices attending technical training. Together, these grants represent our commitment to not only growing the skilled trades, but also fostering inclusivity and accessibility. We believe that everyone deserves the opportunity to pursue their passion and build a successful career, regardless of their financial circumstances. By providing tools and equipment, all individuals, regardless of their financial circumstances, can participate in the apprenticeship system. I would like to thank our colleagues at Employment Nova Scotia who are applying their expertise, resources, and infrastructure to efficiently administer the funding for both these programs on behalf of the Nova Scotia Apprenticeship Agency. By providing financial supports for apprentices to complete their training, we are not just investing in the workforce, we are investing in the future of skilled trades themselves. And as we advance and introduce even further supports for apprentices and trades professionals, let us remember the transformative power of opportunity and stand united in our commitment to breaking down barriers and empowering the next generation of skilled trades professionals.
The February 16th announcement at Port Hawkesbury Paper turned out to be a family affair for a father and son duo from Lewisdale. That's longtime mill employee Wade Sampson on the right. He's joined by his son Dalen, who is an electrical apprentice at Port Hawkesbury Paper, and joining them on the left, Port Hawkesbury Paper co-manager Bevan Locke.
We do feel extremely proud of the 60 years of this mill site operating, and that's because of the men and women that we have employed here. And we have a special opportunity to speak with Dalen, whose father's here and represents a real true nature of family sustaining jobs that this mill provides. And in the future, we hope to provide with our wind assets that we're looking to build here in the coming years. So we'd really like to thank you for choosing Port Hawkesbury Paper and thinking of us when you've made this very important announcement. This facility, as you see, it really, as it is here, supports throughout the 7 eastern counties and continues to be an important economic engine for rural Nova Scotia, now, as we mentioned, for over 6 decades. We continue to place great emphasis on building meaningful careers, and I think the turnout here today on the floor is testament to the wonderful depth of trades and diversity of trades folks that we have here representing the PHP team. So PHP supports a supply chain of over 500 Nova Scotian-based companies, large and small, so it's not only our direct employees, but many that support us, whether it's incoming logistics, outgoing logistics in our forests, and making sure that that's sustained for generations to come. So we also have a direct employment income of over $98 million. We have spin-off economic output of $227 million in the province, and we are independently certified to 3 international certifications for sustainability practices. So over the number of years that we've been here, we've had the opportunity to work with and help develop We've seen over 100 apprentices come through our doors over the years and build their careers in this location. And multiple generations have worked here, and now we have the privilege of hosting employees such as Dylan Sampson, who's going to come up here and share a couple words with us today. And like I mentioned, it's a real special honor to represent for everyone to see how important that development through the apprenticeship program and the meaningful additions that this government is announcing here today will provide for generations to come.
I'd just like to say that I'm thankful for the apprenticeship program and the initiative such as this. Programs like this make it easier for young people that are interested in the trades to kick off a career in a field of their choice and obtain both the education and work experience with a great company such as Port Hawkesbury Paper here in my home community. That also allowed me to come back from where I was at in Fort McMurray and work at the exact same mill as my father is right now. So it'd be nice to get 2 generations of apprentices through this mill. So it's great to see. Thanks.
And I know these financial supports will go a long way to helping to attract and retain more skilled trades professionals that our province needs. As MLA for this region, I would like to thank Port Hawkesbury Paper for welcoming us this morning.
And just before the media availability wrapped up for a photo opportunity at Port Hawkesbury Paper, Labour, Skills and Immigration Minister Jill Balzer confirmed to Telile Community Television that more supports for apprentices are on their way.
And the answer is absolutely. So with that $100 million investment, this is giving us an opportunity to also test and try different incentives, different programs to make sure that we're supporting apprentices in the best way possible. So by removing barriers, that was key. We heard from folks one of the reasons why that they may not complete through their apprenticeship journey is because of costs or family obligations or travel. There's a number of reasons why someone may not finish, but we have to tackle that as a government. And I think with the announcements today and others to come, we're going to be able to show apprentices in this province that we care about them and we need them in the skilled trades right now.
In the meantime, applications are opening on March the 5th for a grant for tools. It applies for tools that are essential for apprentices to carry out their work safely and effectively. These new technology supports are available right now, and all apprentices who are enrolled in technical training as of January 2024 can apply. At Port Hawkesbury Paper in Point Tupper for Telile 24/7, I'm Adam Cook. The next 2 segments here on Telile 24/7 have to do with driving. We're going to hear about how driving has been on Port Hawkesbury's roads, streets, and various highways and byways in a couple of moments' time. But right now, we're going to hear a segment of Richmond Municipal Council's latest Committee of the Whole meeting, including some discussion on an RCMP request for data that's been collected by 2 radar speed signs that are available for different parts of the county. You usually see them in West Arishat and in St. Peters, but they've been making their way to different parts of the county, and the data that has been collected might surprise you in terms of how many speeding incidents have been happening at those areas since they were first established just a few years ago. Let's take you to the Municipal Council chambers in Arishat to hear more.
From Sergeant Brad Kelly of the RCMP regarding road safety in Richmond County. Essentially, Brad has provided us with a note requesting access to the data from the speed radar signs that are set up in, or have been set up in various locations in the county. You know, he's basically looking to gain access to the data so they can properly position the members and choose the best time of day to conduct traffic enforcement in the county. You know, this kind of enforcement, it's, you know, has the chance of, reduces the chance of harm to people and property and also has the potential to save lives. Certainly he's very interested in gaining access to the data so they can plan accordingly. So would councillors be okay with providing that data? I think it's why we did it in the first place. Yeah, well, it certainly is a big part of the reason, right, was to ask people to slow down. And, you know, this initiative did come from council to get the speed radar signs in place originally, so appreciate staff bringing back this back to us with the request from Sergeant Kelly for sure. So could we get a motion to approve the request for access to data from speed radar signs in Richmond County and further move that staff provide Sergeant Kelly with the requested information?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Could I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Melanie Sampson has seconded the motion. Any further discussion?
So what data are we providing exactly? Is it just the speed and the times when it hit? Or what?
Madam Chair, if I may, I'm looking at one of the reports right now, and I won't say where, and I won't say what time of day, but I will say that 339 cars went by, and 91% of them were speeding. So it does total vehicles, total violations, percent violations, what the min speed, max speed, and kilometers and counts. So yeah, it's
Not license plates.
It is not license plates.
Everybody relax.
It's not. It's not pictures of any kind. But it does break it down in the whole 24-hour cycle, which is important for our traffic enforcement because they're seeing when the violations are happening, though some places it's happening throughout the whole cycle. So, lots of work to be done there, but yeah, it gave them really, really useful information. So.
No, thank you for that. No, and I think it's good to be, I know it doesn't take photos, but it's good that it's clear for the public at home that it doesn't do photo radar, and we're providing it for them, so.
And Madam Chair, if I may, on our side, operationally through Public Works, we only look at the counts and the time of day counts for yearly counts if we need empirical data for capital improvements or going to the province with requests. So that's the only reason we have them.
Great. Okay, thanks, Troy. So, any further discussion? Okay. No? We're good? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion is carried.
And now, as promised, let's head to the Port Hawkesbury Civic Centre for an update from the latest regular meeting of Port Hawkesbury Town Council, this one centering on the cleanup that followed the two big snowstorms that walloped the Strait Area earlier this month. Let's kick things off with the Chief Administrative Officer for Port Hawkesbury, Terry Doyle.
We've had two significant storms, and from February 2nd to 5th, there was somewhere between 80 and 100 centimeters of snow received in the town. We had tremendous effort from our Public Works staff and from our Manager of Engineering and Public Works in dealing with that. Many, many long hours, a lot of work. And again, on February 13th, 14th, 15th, we had another snowfall, which at that time we were just finishing, or hadn't completely finished looking after the snow from the first storm. So lots of work, lots of great work from Public Works.
According to Port Hawkesbury's Mayor, Brenda Chisholm-Beaton, a big reason for the success of the town's snow-clearing efforts was the preparedness of Port Hawkesbury's Public Works staff in working with town officials to get ready for these two February storms before they even happened.
Conversations I've had with our CAO, Terry Doyle, in advance of the storms that we've had, has just been about that storm preparation, about the planning and about scheduling, and really having a really solid plan for snow removal. Just to also, obviously, first priority was around, making sure that we had all of our emergency management properties cleared right away, our main artillery roads, and trying to tackle all the roads in town. Our Public Works staff did a tremendous job doing that. And then, of course, on the accessibility side of things, making sure that all of our sidewalks are getting cleared. And not only that huge snowfall we had a couple of weeks back, but just all the snow packed onto that original snow. So sometimes it makes for lonely walks on our sidewalks when the snowbanks are taller than the people walking on them, but that's okay. And also making sure that there's visibility in intersections. So, it's about clearing the roads. It's about trucking off all those huge, drifts of snow to locations just to make sure that we have safe intersections, passable roads and streets here in the town, making sure that everything is open and clear for emergency response, and making sure that our sidewalks are accessible and usable for the public in all the ways they move.
Speaking to Telile 24/7 shortly after Tuesday evening's town council meeting at the Port Hawkesbury Civic Centre, Mayor Chisholm-Beaton pointed out that several aspects of Port Hawkesbury's snow clearing activities are still ongoing. These include sidewalk plowing and removal of excess snow from corners and intersections.
100%. Absolutely. So, I mean, I know that sometimes there are challenges, and of course, there is an element of coordination that needs to go on with other folks other than town public works. So, for example, in planning these storms, there's coordination happening with the provincial emergency management, with our fire chief, with first responders, just to make sure that everybody understands and is part of that plan. And it's just a matter of, just keeping an eye on the weather, being adaptable to the changing, if the storm changes, maybe we get an extra day of snow, as we've seen a few weeks back. But at the end of the day, I really do believe our public works crew did an amazing job, and our CAO mentioned this evening as well. We definitely owe a debt of gratitude to some of the private sector who aided us in the snow removal as well for the initial storm. Just to be able for us to play catch up before the next storm.
So we've had some great work from local contractors that enabled us to get our fire services open right across town, parking lots open, banks pushed back. So a lot of work, a lot of effort with our partners from the private side. So thanks to them.
This support from private contractors proved to be even more critical to Port Hawkesbury's snow clearing attempts, as the town's public works crews were also stuck dealing with things that had nothing to do with the weather.
As well, during that time, we had 3 water main breaks and had ended up replacing or doing major repairs to a fire hydrant as well through that period of time. So busy month for public works.
In the meantime, assistance for Port Hawkesbury's road clearing efforts also came from outside the Port Hawkesbury-Port Hastings area. The Mulgrave Volunteer Fire Department sent a piece of snow clearing equipment to help volunteers clear off the Strait Area trail system.
I think that is absolutely wonderful, and just kudos to the Mulgrave Fire Department for coming over and volunteering their time to help open up some of our Port Hawkesbury community trails. I think it's great, and I will say, as we know with some of the digital software that counts users at our trails, we know they're very well-loved, well-used trails, even in the winter. So all of this snow has definitely put a damper on use of the trail system, and I just wanted to extend gratitude and thanks to the fire department in Mulgrave. Thank you so much for helping to open up the trails. I know they're used by people all across our region. So we get out there, rain, shine, snow, all weather, because nature is just a wonderful thing to go out into.
This joint effort in clearing off the roads, streets, and trails around Port Hawkesbury is drawing praise from other town councillors, including Jason Aucoin, who compared the Port Hawkesbury effort to the massive cleanup going on right now in the Cape Breton Regional Municipality.
At the other end of the island, there's some streets in CBRM, and not to pick on them, but some of their side streets didn't see a snowplow until 4 or 5 days after the first snowfall. And to see what our small crew did here was absolutely phenomenal. I got a text message today, somebody who was driving a dirt truck in another area and said, I'm here, their crew is probably 10 times what you guys have, and their streets are still at 1 lane. So it just goes to show what kind of crew we actually have and how much they are appreciated.
And now let's return to Richmond Municipal Council, where Warden Amanda Mumbercat is giving a presentation about a special trip she took to the United Kingdom earlier this winter. It was orchestrated by the municipality of the District of Guysborough, and it allowed municipal officials from across Nova Scotia to get up close and personal with communities that have had wind energy going for several years, and in some cases, even decades. Here's Warden Mumbercat outlining her trip to England and Scotland at the latest Committee of the Whole meeting for Richmond Municipal Council.
Just want to thank the municipality of the District of Guysborough for organizing the tour. As a co-chair for the Strait of Canso Offshore Wind Task Force, I was invited to participate. It was a learning tour with a whole variety of stakeholders that included representatives from the task force, as I mentioned, the provincial government, Natural Resources and Renewables was in attendance, the federal government through ACOA, the Guysborough County Inshore Fishers Association, the Strait of Canso Superport Corporation, and Melford Terminals. The learning tour was jammed into a couple of days where we visited projects in both Aberdeen and Newcastle from January 28th to the 31st. I do want to mention some of the learning outcomes. Obviously they're an industry in that region that is 30 years ahead of where we are today. It's clear that the UK government has certainly identified energy transition and the green economy as a top priority based on the millions and millions of pounds that they are investing into that sector of the economy. And as you can tell from the enabling policy development as well. A couple of key pieces I wanted to note, though, just from the tours was that the strong professional services and industry associations that have been created to support the responsible sector development and to ensure an appropriate level of community engagement. And I know that the Cape Breton Partnership, Net Zero Atlantic, and certainly the task force itself have been working really hard on the community engagement side, but there's more work to be done, and glad to see that we're kind of going in that direction of creating those organizations. I do want to also say that their focus was on active and inclusive collaboration and a real focus on innovative marine spatial planning to ensure that fisheries, energy, and other sectors can coexist in our waters. Their training facilities, I got there a day ahead of the rest of the group, and was able to take the Sunday morning to tour a training facility in Aberdeen that was not on the original agenda, as well as visit one in Newcastle that was on the agenda. And I have to say the quality of those spaces was quite something to behold, and the busyness of those spaces, and learned a lot about some of the innovative ways that they are working with groups such as ex-forces to recruit, retrain people for green economy jobs. A lot of talk about their underwater infrastructure, depending on which side of the coin you were on, either how that can drive part of the economy forward or how we can minimize the footprint of that, because we have other sectors that, that share the ocean as well, obviously. Certainly would point out that the UK's ambition to have as much benefit land where developments are taking place is being directly supported by the private sector and by the public sector as well. They're doing some really innovative work and aggressive work, I would say, to develop local supply chains, research and training institutions. We talked about maybe an enabling role for government to do a bit of a play fairway style analysis to shrink data collection times. So that's essentially where the Nova Scotia government could go out and do some preparatory work on data collection that would be available to any developer to reduce those kinds of burdens. Also of interest to me was the discussion on ports. So we did visit, obviously, the Port of Aberdeen, Port of Tyne as well, and ports, basically the observation was that ports that have waited for private sector development or private sector investment before investing in infrastructure and readiness, they've missed the opportunity to attract those large private sector investments in projects. Clients look for certainty and surety, and you know, when you don't have the facilities to attract them, they'll often go elsewhere. And of course, you know, currently, or I guess we recently had a request for proposals out for an offshore wind center of excellence, looking at what that could look like for Nova Scotia. So visiting the ORE Catapult model in the UK was quite eye-opening, and although certainly at a different scale to anything that our governments or private sector, I think, would be able to support at this stage in Nova Scotia. But we have to start somewhere, and I think these types of learning tours are really valuable. I've included some pretty detailed notes on each of the visits. I think there were 9 or 10 meetings, and happy to answer any questions on that, but I also recognize it's there's a lot of detail there. Yeah, so thanks again to our hosts at the District of Guysborough for opening the door to that. You know, one of the engagement sessions that occurred in Discoos for the Cape Breton Partnership and Net Zero Atlantic's sort of community consultation, there was a one person in particular in the audience who said, you know, we have a job to do here, and it's learning as much as we can about this sector before we jump in with both feet, and that this type of thing, I have to say, even more valuable, you know, than going to a conference where you have many delegates and presenters, but you're kind of getting that sort of to the many communication. This was very targeted, and the visits were very much I guess, designed and planned with the potential of the sector here at play. So you had really much more in-depth conversations, and it was really useful.
And now we'd like to share a presentation made to the Committee of the Whole meeting for Richmond Municipal Council by 2 members of the Property Valuation Services Corporation. Many concerns have been raised in Richmond County and across the Strait Area about rising assessment costs that were put on notices mailed out to homeowners earlier this winter. Well, Paul Beasley and Adam Travis from the Property Valuation Services Corporation made a special presentation to Richmond Municipal Council, and they've outlined several different reasons why assessment figures wind up the way they are. They'll also be answering questions from Richmond Municipal Councillors a little later on in this segment. Let's begin with an assessor for the Property Valuation Services Corporation of Nova Scotia, Adam Travis.
Last year, if you recall, in 2020, for the 2023 assessments, it was around 7.7%, and this year for the 2024 assessments, it was set at 3.2%. So, a couple things on the CAP program. For an eligible property, must be a residential property under 4 units, at least 50% owned by a Nova Scotia resident. If it's a condo, it would have to be owner occupied, the property must not have sold unless it was within the immediate family the year prior to be eligible. And then this is what it would look like on a on your notice. So if it's an eligible property that has a cap assessment, then the cap would, and the cap is lower than the assessed value, the cap would appear just as seen here on the screen with that notice, and then the lower the two values would be, the lower between the cap and the assessed value would be your taxable assessed value, so the amount that the owner would pay taxes on. Little assessment roll activities for Richmond County. So what we've seen in the calendar year 2023, we reviewed 212 permits. Property transactions was 621. And appeals that we received last year was 187. So a common question is, how many of those did we amend? So last year we amended around 25% of those. So approximately 45 out of the 187, the values of them were amended. Looking at the assessment roll total for this year that we sent out, that we sent to the municipality before the end of December, and then mailed up to property owners there on January 8th. So there's the big numbers there. I'll walk through the percentages. So total residential, that would include, so that includes everything within residential. It includes the taxable and exempt accounts. It would include market growth through our reassessment, but also everything that was added through the building permit review, the sales review. So just total year-over-year comparison. So of the residential assessment roll. So that those numbers there from 2023 to 2024 around to just under a 22% increase when you factor everything in there. The total residential with the cap, so that'd be amended down because a bulk of the residential properties was fall into the cap program, and that increase is 10.5%, which was, I think it was around 10% last year, so it was pretty much in line with what that was last year with the residential with the cap. Total commercial was just under 4% last year. This year it's 4.9%, so in line as well. And the total assessment roll went from 1.2 up to 1.4. So in Richmond County, there's approximately 82 of the residential dwellings that are eligible. 82% of the residential dwellings are eligible or in the CAP program. So yeah, those were the increases that we've seen. Again, that it doesn't include just market activity, but includes everything with the market, the building permits that were added, and the sale of reviews through the reassessment as well. Some sector highlights, what we've seen in the just across the province with all the major sectors. So despite rising costs and with building materials and labor, the commercial development did continue. Business and industrial parks did continue to see market growth. Apartments continue to be strong investments, both the buying and remodeling of the existing buildings and the construction of new ones as well. What we've seen was the retail sector saw a steady tendency in increased leases, and as we've been kind of seeing since this COVID or the past 3 to 4 years, the office buildings were remaining flat, which is reflecting the response to shifts in workplace requirements. So we, unfortunately, what we've seen the past couple of years is the increase what we would have the natural disasters. So I know everyone there is familiar with Fiona that we had back in 2022, which was a pretty wide event from really ranging from Cape Breton up past Truro, depending on certain areas. And then last year we also had the fires in Telile and within different neighborhoods. So the 2024 assessments did consider the impact of the wildfires and flash floods. So we worked in those areas. We worked directly with those impacted municipalities. We had aerial imagery flown over right away. We sent out questionnaires to the neighborhoods and the property owners that were affected, and then we had assessors visiting all those properties within that neighborhood that those fires happened. And we're in continued contact now as well with those owners in the municipality. And then we'll monitor those impacted areas closely for market trends and rebuilding efforts going forward as well. We just finished the inquiry and appeal period, so we mailed out our notices, as I'm sure you're well aware, January 8th this year. As per the Assessment Act, there's a 31-day appeal period, so that ended at midnight February 8th. During the appeal period, we had all our assessors on the phones because call volume is quite heavy. We had them all on the phones for those 31 days. We do still have some on the phones, and we will continue all year for owners that have any questions or questions about their notice or property details. Just our contact information, so that's our 1-800 number there for property owners, or our email address at inquiry@pvsc.ca. And municipal staff as well. It's the same phone number, just a different queue that you'll be sent through for municipal staff. And the email address if you're contacting us from municipality is servicedesk@pvsc.ca.
I know many of us were contacted about assessments, when they were released. Councillors, do you have any questions for Paul or Adam at this time?
So Adam, going year prior, you had mentioned that the capped assessment was at 7.7%, and this year down to 3.2%. So I'm assuming that's a good news story, but would you have any insight on, the decision there, why you seen that come down, or?
Well, it's directly linked to the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. So basically, inflation, really. So I think it don't want to misspeak, but I'm not an expert in how it's calculated. We receive that number from the provincial government, but you can go online and see from month over month, how it's calculated and what that cap rate is set at. We get the final value. It's all goods consumer price index. So if you were looking on the Nova Scotia government website, and there's a bunch of different numbers there, but it's all goods directly linked to the CPI, and you can see that it's released every month. But we get the final number of what that's going to be set at at the end of November, right before the roll comes out.
I think the other interesting part about CPI this year, as Adam said, it's year to year. It's the Stats Canada CPI for Nova Scotia, and it was tracking last year was 7.7. And it was tracking in the 5s and 6s for quite a while, and then it came down quite quickly the last few months to that 3.2%, reflecting that inflation had come down quite a bit just a couple of months prior to the actual roll going out. So yes, the CPI rate, or the amount that assessments would go up as far as the cap, the maximum amount that are capped, was less than half of what it was last year, 7.7 versus 3.2.
You said PVSC uses a mass appraisal system to determine the value. I guess one of the questions I would have from the residents is how does that determine because we've seen increases from anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 within the single area, and we've also seen $1 million homes assessed for $500,000 and $100,000 homes assessed for $200,000. So I guess the question is, I know you say at the end of December, you kind of make the visual, or you go around to, the state date, you make the physical state of the properties then on December, but I'm just wondering how that's done, how there's such a wide gap.
Yeah, so it's a great question. So two things there. So it's a physical state of the property, right, as of December 1st. What we do, we have, so the 2020, as Paul mentioned, the 2024 assessments based on, the base date for that is January 1st, 2023. So the state of the market at that time, which consists of sales, market activity in the 2022 calendar year. So couple different things, and it's a great question because it's really one of the most common ones that we've seen. We see every inquiry period. How can different properties in a similar area be assessed differently or go up different percentages? I think that was around the first part of your question. So when we do our reassessment each year, we're looking at sales within each market area within each municipality. So we review sales prices. That's why we review all every sale that comes in the municipality, just to make sure that our data is correct. Our data is correct, that we're not missing anything, because when we go to do our yearly reassessment, we do reassessments each year in every neighborhood. So when we're doing that, we're using, in the residential file, we use the most reliable approach to value. Paul mentioned the 3 approaches to value, direct sales comparison approach. So different properties may increase at different percentages depending on each, a physical attribute that they have within that property. So they might be in a similar area. They could have different physical characteristics, and thus they would increase differently depending on the type of property. The main factors that drive value be year built, factor in renovations, things like that. And then also, so that's one of the main things we see using the direct sales comparison approach when we do those yearly reassessments. Depending on the physical characteristics of each property, they may increase differently. And then also, when we're reviewing those sales or reviewing the building permits, especially with building permits, because it's usually renovations or new builds or things like that, they're obviously going to increase more than ones that don't take out building permits or don't do the renovations, because we're adding, those renovations are increasing the market value of their home most often. So those are usually the main reasons why they would increase differently. But I guess we do the yearly reassessment in those market areas based on the sales to set those market rates. And then It's a great question, and like I said, it's probably one of the most common ones that we get. But we always, whenever we're speaking to the public or engaging with property owners, we encourage them to. There's a couple things that they can do. They can check their My Property report on our website. They have a PIN access code that they can go in just to make sure that what they're seeing and what they're being assessed for, they can confirm the details of their property on there. And then if they have any questions on value or they think, because when it comes under appeal, at the end of the day, it falls back to Section 42 of the Assessment Act. So it comes down to, is your property worth? If you were to sell that property on the open market, is it worth that value? And if owners call in and read our website and they still think it's too high, or they still they're not in agreement with our value, then by all means send the appeal in. But we do encourage them to check out, to look at our website or call in and speak to an assessor, and then they can make their decision after that.
I think just to add to it, one of the important things with mass appraisal is having sufficient sales in order to validate market movements. And the past 2 years, as you can appreciate, sales volumes have been up significantly, and it gave us, it really allowed us to look at the data and take a really good look at it and have enough data in many of the neighborhoods in order to actually reset at market value. Sometimes if you don't have enough sales in some neighborhoods, we really can't move it unless we're seeing that evidence. So the fact that there's enough sales, and I'll give you an example here as well. The largest segment of homes in Richmond, residential properties, are built between 1980 and 2000. And 2 years ago, or for the roll 2 years ago, or the previous year's roll, there were 66 homes in that 2 years ago there were 85 homes in that category, and they sold in the market on average for $168,000. And then for this roll there were 66 sales, and they sold on average for $215,000. So that's about 25%, and that's exactly what the market's telling us, is that these properties are selling for this amount on average. So you see that 25% in the market with good, strong sales, and that's why you're seeing some of the higher changes. And some neighborhoods less changes, some neighborhoods more changes, but on average, that's the type of numbers we're talking about. Hope that answered it for you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Adam, for your response on that.
And just as we're wrapping up this week's edition of Telile 24/7, here is one more segment from the recent Committee of the Whole meeting of Richmond Municipal Council, as Chief Administrative Officer for the county, Troy McCulloch, updates a request from the Coastal Riders ATV Association to try to gain access to property near a former landfill site in Lordways. Let's hear what the CAO has to say about this request and where it's going from here.
Met with the Coastal Riders on site a couple weeks ago now. Observed what they were proposing. Want to thank them for having the foresight to want to do something out there to protect the investment we already made in the capping of that previous landfill site. A trail does go along there as it stands right now. So right now we are waiting on legal. Just to make sure we understand what liabilities are there. What they're proposing seems like a great idea, but again, we have to make sure that legally I can come back to you guys with a report so we know what allowing them to build a snow fence along there opens us up to. And once we have that report, then we'll come back, but they, kudos to them for reaching out to us to want to work with us and try and protect and realize the costs that the municipality incurred trying to reclaim that land out there. And they're just trying to keep honest people honest, which, is awesome. So we appreciate that. And as soon as we get an answer, it'll be coming back to council.
And there you have it. That wraps up this week's edition of Telile 24/7. Thank you for tuning in, and a special thank you to the Mayor of Port Hawkesbury, Brenda Chisholm-Beaton, for taking my questions following the latest regular meeting of Port Hawkesbury Town Council. If you have any thoughts about what you've seen over the past hour here on Telile 24/7, or you'd just like to make suggestions for a future edition of the show, I'd love to hear them. You can contact me directly. My phone number is 902-625-8863, and my email is adamjrcook, cook with an E, @gmail.com. You can also contact Telile Community Television directly with your suggestions and your comments. The station phone number in Arichat is 902-226-1928, and the best email address to use is telile@telile.tv. Don't forget, you can always follow Telile on social media. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter, as well as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Our YouTube channel features every single episode of Telile 24/7, including this one, as well as individual segments and interviews from our shows. We offer the same service for our sister program, Roundtable, and also on Telile's YouTube channel, you can see several new French language programs produced by the newest member to the Telile news team, Jacqueline Giroir. For now, I'm Adam Cook. Thank you once again for joining me for this week's edition of Telile 24/7. I look forward to seeing you again next week with a brand new show. Bye for now.